Jake Morrison walked through the long hallway of the Galactic Federation building. His shoes made soft sounds on the metal floor. Behind him, his assistant Lisa Carter carried a stack of files about Earth's latest help offers. Jake had been Earth's main speaker to the galaxy for 3 years now. Every day felt harder than the last. The meeting room was huge. The ceiling went up so high that Jake could barely see the top. Giant crystal beings from the Zephyrian Council sat on tall chairs that looked like they were made of ice. Their bodies gave off a cold blue light that hurt human eyes if you looked too long. Jake took his place at the small human table. It was much lower than all the other tables in the room. This was done on purpose. The aliens wanted humans to know they were not important. Great council members, Jake said in his best polite voice. Earth wants to ask for permission again. We want to put medical stations in the outer rim areas where there is fighting. Our doctors can help all kinds of beings. We do not care what species they are. The lead crystal being, Counselor Vexthara, made a sound like glass breaking. The translation machine turned this into laughter. The humans keep talking about their silly kindness. Do they not know that being weak makes other beings want to attack you in this galaxy? Lisa stepped forward and touched a button on her device. Pictures appeared in the air, showing human doctors helping alien patients. We have helped more than 2 million refugees from the war between the Crodans and the Helix people. Our moving hospitals have saved many lives. Another alien voice came from across the room. This one belonged to Ambassador Korthek from the Hegemony military group. He looked like a giant bug with too many arms. Lives that mean nothing when you look at the big picture. Humans waste good supplies on beings who are dying anyway. They should make the living stronger instead. This is why your species will never be allowed in the important councils. Jake felt his hands make fists, but he kept his face calm. Earth had spent 20 years getting ready to join the galaxy community. They thought their natural caring and their good medical tools would make other beings respect them. Instead, they found themselves doing small jobs while being laughed at as the galaxy's nurses. The meeting went on for 2 more hours. Every time Jake or Lisa suggested ways to help suffering beings, the alien council members either ignored them or made jokes. The Zephyrians called human doctors soft flesh healers. The Crodans said humans were too emotional to understand real politics. The Silicon Confederation beings just made beeping sounds that the translator said meant irrelevant input. When the meeting ended, Jake and Lisa walked back to their small ship. Lisa looked tired and sad. They took our medicine supplies last month when their own people got sick, she said. But they still won't let us vote on anything important. Jake nodded. They use us when they need us. Then they pretend we don't matter. Back on Earth, President Elena Brooks sat in her office reading reports from human teams all over the galaxy. Every report said the same thing. Aliens took human help when it was useful, but treated humans like servants the rest of the time. The 3 big powers in the galaxy were the Zephyrian Hegemony, the Crodan Empire, and the Silicon Confederation. They controlled most of the star systems and made all the important decisions. Humans were only allowed to do medical work and disaster relief. Ben Taylor, Elena's chief helper, knocked on her door and came in. The Crodans started calling our relief workers soft flesh servants in their private messages. Our spy people caught it last week. Elena felt angry, but kept her voice steady. They take our medical supplies. They take our food shipments. They take our disaster relief help. But they won't give us the right to vote on anything that matters. What the galaxy did not know was that humans had been writing down every insult, every time they were not grateful, and every moment they were laughed at. Dr. Amy Rodriguez's medical missions were not just about helping sick beings. They were also about gathering information. Every world they helped, every species they treated, and every government building they saw was carefully written down in Earth's growing list of galaxy weaknesses. Dr. Rodriguez was on a planet called Thylos. That week, the Thylorians were peaceful beings who looked like tall, thin humans, but with purple skin and forearms. They had always been kind to human visitors and had supported Earth when Earth asked to join the Federation. The medical supplies from Earth arrived yesterday, reported her assistant, Nurse Dan Murphy. The Thylorian government sent a thank you message. They said human help saved 3,000 lives during the plague outbreak. Amy smiled. It felt good to help beings who actually appreciated it, but even here, she had to be careful. Her medical scanners did more than just check for diseases. They also mapped the planet's communication systems, power grids, and defense networks. Every bit of information went back to Earth. The same thing was happening on hundreds of worlds. Human doctors, nurses, and relief workers were everywhere in the galaxy. They went to war zones, refugee camps, and disaster areas. Aliens had gotten used to seeing human medical ships in these places. No one asked questions when these ships started carrying bigger crews or making more supply runs. Roger Hayes commanded one of these medical ships called the New Hope. His crew of 40 people all wore medical uniforms and carried medical tools. But in the ship's hidden compartments were weapons, communication equipment, and military supplies that could outfit a small army. Status report, Roger said to his first officer, Lieutenant Nancy Powell. All medical equipment is functioning normally, Nancy said with a small smile. The special supplies are also ready for deployment when needed, Roger nodded. For 3 years, his ship had been visiting different star systems to help with medical emergencies. The aliens saw them as harmless healers. They never bothered to scan the ship's cargo holds carefully. They never wondered why a medical ship needed such powerful engines and thick armor plating. Back in the Federation building, Jake Morrison was having dinner with other human diplomats. The food was bland and the portions were small. This was another way the aliens showed that humans were not important. I got word from Earth today, Jake said quietly to Lisa. The president is getting tired of this treatment. Lisa looked around to make sure no aliens were listening. What did she say? Jake's voice became even quieter. She said to keep doing our jobs and keep being patient. But she also said to make sure we document everything. Every insult, every time they ignore suffering beings, every moment they show their true nature. Lisa understood. Earth was not just accepting bad treatment. They were building a case for something bigger. That night, Jake sat alone in his quarters, looking at the stars through his small window. Somewhere out there, human teams were working on dozens of worlds. They were helping beings who needed medical care, food, and shelter. But they were also learning things. They were mapping alien worlds, studying alien technology, and understanding how alien governments worked. The galaxy thought humans were weak because they cared about others. They thought humans were foolish because they helped beings who could not help them back. They thought humans were naive because they believed in fairness and justice. The galaxy was about to learn how wrong they were. The emergency message reached Earth at 3 in the morning. President Elena Brooks was pulled from her sleep by the urgent beeping of her secure communication device. The message was from Dr. Amy Rodriguez on the planet Thylos. Mr. President. Amy's voice was shaking with anger and sadness. The Crodans have attacked Thylos without warning. They are not just taking over the planet. They are killing everyone they find. This is not a military conquest. This is murder. Elena sat up in her bed and turned on the lights. How many casualties? We don't know yet. The Croden ships started bombing civilian areas first. Schools, hospitals, homes with families. They targeted the places where people could not fight back. The Thylorian military bases were hit last. Elena felt cold anger spreading through her chest. The Thylaurians had been nothing but kind to humans. They were artists and philosophers who spent their time making beautiful things and thinking deep thoughts. They had no enemies and threatened no one. "What do you need?" Elena asked. "Medical supplies, evacuation ships, and a lot of people. The survivors are hiding in caves and underground tunnels. Many are badly hurt. The children are the worst. They don't understand why this is happening." Elena was already getting dressed. "You'll have everything we can send. Hold on, Amy. Help is coming." Within 6 hours, human medical ships were racing toward Thylos from all over the galaxy. Captain Roger Hayes pushed his ship, New Hope, to maximum speed. His crew worked to prepare medical supplies and temporary shelters. "How long until we reach Thylos?" Roger asked his navigator. 18 hours at current speed," came the reply. "Push the engines harder. Those people are dying while we travel." When the human ships finally reached Thylos, what they found made even the experienced medical teams feel sick. The beautiful crystal cities that the Thylaurians had built over thousands of years were now smoking ruins. Bodies lay in the streets. Many were small bodies. Dr. Amy Rodriguez met Captain Hayes at the landing site. Her medical uniform was covered in purple blood from treating Thylaurian patients. Her eyes were red from crying and lack of sleep. "They didn't just kill the soldiers," Amy said, as she led Roger to the refugee camp. "They went house by house looking for families. When they found them, they made the parents watch while they hurt the children first." Roger had seen war before, but this made him feel physically sick. Why? What did the Thylaurians ever do to them? Nothing. That's what makes this so evil. The Crodans attacked because they knew the Thylaurians couldn't fight back. They wanted an easy victory to show other species what happens to weak beings. The refugee camp was filled with purple-skinned beings who sat in silence. Many had lost arms or legs in the bombing. Others had burns that covered most of their bodies. The children were the hardest to look at. They stared at nothing with empty eyes. Nurse Dan Murphy was treating a young Thylaurian who couldn't have been more than 6 years old by human standards. The child had lost both parents and one of her 4 arms. She hadn't spoken since the attack. "The physical wounds will heal," Dan said quietly to Amy. "But the emotional damage might never go away." For 2 weeks, human medical teams worked around the clock. They treated thousands of injured survivors and helped them build temporary homes. The humans shared their own food when supplies ran low. They gave up their sleeping quarters so that Thylaurian families could have private spaces. Meanwhile, Ambassador Jake Morrison was preparing to address the Galactic Federation Council about the massacre. He had photos, video recordings, and witness statements that clearly showed the Crodans had committed terrible crimes against innocent beings. Jake stood before the same crystal beings who had laughed at human kindness just months before. This time his voice was not polite. It was filled with controlled anger. "Honored council members, I am here to present evidence of war crimes committed by the Krogan Empire against the peaceful Thylaurian people. These crimes include the deliberate targeting of civilian populations, the torture and murder of non-combatants, and the systematic destruction of cultural sites." Counselor Vextara didn't even look at the evidence Jake was showing. The Krogan Empire operates within acceptable conquest parameters. The Thylaurians failed to maintain adequate defenses. This outcome was predictable. Jake felt his diplomatic training cracking. Predictable? These are innocent civilians we're talking about. Families, children, elderly beings who never hurt anyone in their lives. Admiral Korvash of the Krogan Empire laughed from his seat. He was a large being covered in gray scales, with teeth like daggers. The humans show their basic misunderstanding of how the galaxy works. Strength determines who survives. The Thylaurians were weak, so they fell. It is the way things have always been. Then what about justice? Dr. Rodriguez had arrived from Thylos to give her testimony. What about basic right and wrong? Human concepts, Counselor Vextara said with dismissal. These ideas are not relevant to species evolution and galactic stability. Jake played a video recording of Thylaurian children crying for their dead parents. The council members either looked away or made bored expressions. Some even started talking among themselves about other topics. You will do nothing to help? Jake asked. The matter is closed, Vextara announced. The Croden territorial claims are now recognized by this council. Perhaps humans should focus on learning strength instead of wasting time on lost causes. Several council members made sounds that the translators turned into laughter. They were actually making jokes about the suffering of an entire species, while humans begged for help. The session ended with the Federation not only refusing to help the Thylaurian survivors, but actually making the Croden conquest legal. Even worse, they suggested that humans were being foolish for caring about beings who couldn't defend themselves. That night, Jake sat in his small quarters, staring at a secure message from President Brooks. The message had only a few words, but they carried enormous meaning. Operation Shepherd is now authorized. Phase 1 begins immediately. Dr. Rodriguez received the same message while she was treating patients in the refugee camp. Captain Hayes got his copy while his ship was delivering supplies to hidden Thylaurian communities. Dozens of other human personnel scattered across the galaxy all received identical orders. For 5 years, they had played the role of naive do-gooders while secretly preparing for this moment. They had documented every act of cruelty, every moment of mockery, and every time the galaxy's powerful beings had chosen violence over mercy. The Thylaurian massacre was the final proof that the current galactic system was broken beyond repair. Innocent beings could be murdered, while the so-called civilized council made jokes about their suffering. The strong could commit any crime they wanted, as long as they had enough weapons. Jake looked out his window at the stars, then thought about all the human teams working throughout the galaxy. For 5 years, they had been building something while everyone else focused on their weakness and kindness. Medical ships that carried more than medical supplies. Relief workers who knew more than just how to distribute food. Doctors who could do more than heal wounds. The galaxy had mistaken human mercy for human weakness. They thought that beings who cared about others must be easy to defeat. They believed that a species focused on helping others couldn't possibly be dangerous to those who chose cruelty. Tomorrow, Jake would continue playing his role as the disappointed diplomat. Dr. Rodriguez would keep treating patients and building refugee camps. Captain Hayes would keep delivering supplies and medical aid, but now they would also be doing something else. Something the galaxy wasn't expecting and wouldn't understand until it was too late. The galaxy wanted to see what happened. When humans stopped being nice, they were about to find out. 6 months passed after the Thylaurian massacre. The galaxy continued with business as usual. The major powers argued over territory and resources, while ignoring human diplomatic complaints. What they failed to notice were the small changes happening across human operations. Dr. Amy Rodriguez's medical missions had quietly grown larger. Her hospital ships now carried bigger crews and made more frequent supply runs. The galaxy had become used to seeing human medical vessels in war zones, refugee camps, and disaster areas. No one questioned why these ships needed more people or why their cargo holds seemed fuller than before. On the diplomatic front, Ambassador Jake Morrison had become surprisingly quiet in recent months. His angry protests about galactic unfairness had changed into calm acceptance and bureaucratic agreement. The alien councils thought this meant humanity was finally learning their proper place in the galaxy. The humans have grown wisely silent, Counselor Vextara said during a private hegemony meeting. Perhaps our lessons in strength have finally entered their soft philosophy. The other crystal beings made sounds of agreement. They believed they had successfully taught humans to stop caring about justice and mercy. They thought the massacre of the Thalorians had shown humans that kindness was pointless in a galaxy ruled by force. Meanwhile, far below Earth's surface, President Elena Brooks stood in a secret military facility called the Garden. The walls showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with thousands of red dots marking human positions. Each dot represented years of careful planning and patient work. "Status report," Elena commanded. General Mike Patterson stepped forward. He was Earth's top military planner and had been working on this project since humans first joined the galaxy. "All Shepard assets are in position. We have medical vessels within striking distance of every major military base, government center, and resource hub in Hegemony, Croton, and Confederation space. Intelligence confirms our understanding of their weaknesses." Elena asked Colonel. Lisa Murphy nodded. She ran Earth's spy network and had been gathering information for 5 years. "Our humanitarian missions gave us complete access to their infrastructure. We know every power grid, every communication relay, and every supply chain weak point. Our medical scans of alien personnel provided detailed biological profiles for each species." Dr. Rodriguez appeared on the main screen through a secure transmission from her position near Croton space. "Mr. President, the irony is perfect. They have become so dependent on our medical aid that our ships are part of their emergency response systems. We are literally inside their defenses, and they invited us in themselves." Elena allowed herself a cold smile. "And our special personnel?" "The Mercy Corps is ready," General Patterson replied. 200,000 of our best soldiers, all trained as medical workers. They have spent years earning the trust of alien populations while mapping every strategic target in the galaxy. Captain Roger Hayes joined the conversation from his position near the Silicon Confederation border. The aliens see human medics as harmless servants. They never bothered to scan our medical equipment for weapons. Every hospital we built, every supply depot we established, and every refugee camp we organized are all military bases now. Elena looked at the galaxy map, where each red dot represented years of careful planning and sacrifice. Human teams had worked tirelessly to earn alien trust while secretly preparing for this moment. They had smiled while being insulted, helped those who mocked them, and saved lives among beings who called them weak. "The Thalorians were the last example we needed," Elena said quietly. "We offered the galaxy peace, compassion, and cooperation. They responded with mockery, exploitation, and genocide. It is time they learned what humanity is really capable of." She turned to address the room full of military commanders, intelligence officers, and strategic planners. "Ladies and gentlemen, for 5 years we have played the role of galactic servants. We have been patient, kind, and forgiving while they treated us like inferiors and let innocent beings die." Elena's voice became harder. "But humanity did not conquer Earth through kindness alone. We did not survive ice ages, plagues, and world wars by being soft. Tomorrow, the galaxy will discover that our greatest weapon was never our compassion. It was our ability to make them believe that compassion was all we had." Across the galaxy, human personnel received their final orders. Dr. Rodriguez checked her medical equipment one last time. Hidden inside devices that looked like standard healing tools were weapons that could disable entire starships. Her medical bay had secret compartments filled with military gear that could outfit a small army. Captain Hayes walked through his ship New Hope and saw his crew making final preparations. Nurse Dan Murphy was actually Lieutenant Dan Murphy, a demolitions expert who had spent 3 years learning Croton weak points while treating their wounded soldiers. Chief Medical Officer Nancy Powell was really Colonel Nancy Powell, a strategic warfare specialist who had mapped every major Croton military installation. Similar preparations were happening on hundreds of worlds. Human relief workers in refugee camps quietly activated hidden communication equipment. Aid stations revealed concealed weapon systems. Supply depots opened, secret armories that had been built over years of seemingly innocent construction projects. Ambassador Jake Morrison sat in his diplomatic quarters reviewing files that contained detailed plans for taking control of the Federation Council chambers. His assistant Lisa Carter was actually Major Lisa Carter, an intelligence operative who had spent years learning the security systems of every major government building in hegemony space. The aliens had no idea what was coming. They saw human medical ships and thought harmless healers. They saw human relief workers and thought useful servants. They saw human diplomats and thought defeated idealists. They had become so comfortable with their superiority that they stopped paying attention to what humans were actually doing. In the Croton Empire, Admiral Corvash was planning new conquest campaigns. Human medical teams aboard his flagship had been treating wounded Croton warriors for 3 years. He trusted them completely and never questioned why they needed access to his ship's computer systems for their medical records. On the hegemony homeworld, Counselor Vexthara was preparing for another session where he could mock human weakness. He never wondered why the human medical station near the capital city had been expanded so many times, or why it needed such powerful communication equipment in Silicon Confederation space. Their artificial intelligence systems had grown dependent on human technical support. Human engineers who claimed to be helping with medical equipment. Maintenance had actually been installing hidden programs in their most secure networks. The Galaxy's 3 major powers had all made the same mistake. They had allowed humans close to their most important assets because they believed humans were too weak and too kind to be dangerous. They thought beings who spent their time helping others could never be a threat to those who chose cruelty and violence. Elena Brooks looked one last time at the galactic map showing human positions. Every red dot represented a human team that had worked patiently for years while being mocked and dismissed. They had endured insults while gathering intelligence. They had been called weak while preparing for war. They had been treated as servants while positioning themselves to become masters. Begin Operation Shepherd, Elena commanded. Across 17 star systems, human personnel received the signal simultaneously. The galaxy that had mocked Earth's kindness was about to learn why humans had become the dominant species on their own world. They were about to discover that the greatest predators were often the ones that appeared most harmless. The age of human patience was ending. The age of human justice was about to begin. Operation Shepherd began at exactly 0800 Galactic Standard time across 17 star systems at the same moment. The galaxy's first sign that something had changed came when every major communication network went silent within the same 30-second window. Aboard the Croton flagship Dominator, Admiral Corvash was reviewing conquest plans when his communications officer suddenly looked up in confusion. "Sir, we have lost contact with High Command. Actually, we have lost contact with everything." Before the Admiral could respond, Dr. Nancy Powell's voice came through the ship's speaker system. For 3 years, her medical team had been stationed aboard the Dominator, treating wounded Croton warriors and earning their grudging respect. Admiral Corvash, Dr. Powell's voice was no longer the gentle tone the Crotons knew. It was cold, professional, and completely confident. "This is Colonel Nancy Powell of the Human Strategic Command. Your ship is now under our control." The Admiral laughed and reached for his weapon. "Impossible. You are medics, not warriors. We are both, came the reply, as armed figures in human military gear came out of what the Crodans had thought were medical storage rooms. Surprise. The Crodan security forces tried to fight back, but found their weapons would not work. The humans had quietly disabled their weapon systems over months of routine medical equipment maintenance. The ship's computer systems had already been taken over by programs that Dr. Powell's team had installed while updating medical databases. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The medical ship orbiting the Zephyrian homeworld suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems that made it more powerful than most warships. Human relief workers in refugee camps simultaneously activated hidden military equipment, turning aid stations into command centers. On the hegemony capital world, Counselor Vexthara was in the middle of a council session when the lights went out. Emergency power came back on moments later, but the massive view-screen now showed President Elena Brooks' face. "Honorable council members," Elena said with mock politeness, "I hope you will forgive the interruption, but humanity has some things to discuss with you." "This is impossible," Vexthara sputtered. "You are a primitive species with no military capabilities. We have seen your forces. You have nothing but medical ships and relief workers." Elena smiled coldly. "You have seen exactly what we wanted you to see. Every medical mission was a military operation. Every humanitarian worker was a trained soldier. Every hospital we built was a forward operating base. For 5 years, you have been so focused on mocking our kindness that you never noticed we were preparing for war." Across the galaxy, human forces had simultaneously taken control of power grids, communication networks, transportation hubs, and defense systems. The aliens' own infrastructure, which they had allowed humans to help maintain and improve, had become the weapon used against them. Captain Roger Hayes stood on the bridge of what the Silicon Confederation had known as the hospital. Ship Mercy. The vessel's medical bay walls had moved back to reveal a military command center that would have impressed any galactic navy. "Confederation Admiral Zixtel," he said into the communication system. "This is Captain Hayes of the human Navy vessel. Retribution. Yes, that is its real name. Mercy was just what we painted on the side." The response was predictably outraged. "Humans have no navy. You are medical personnel." "We have the largest and most advanced fleet in the galaxy," Hayes replied calmly. "We just disguised it as humanitarian vessels. Did you really think a species that conquered its own planet would not know how to fight?" Dr. Amy Rodriguez stood in what had been the Crodan Empire's primary medical facility, now revealed as a fully equipped human military base. Around her, alien patients who had been getting treatment watched in stunned silence as human medics transformed into soldiers. "For 5 years," she announced to the facility's occupants, "you have mocked humanity's compassion. You have called you as weak, naive, and foolish. You have taken our medical aid while laughing at our kindness. You have watched innocent species die while we begged you to help." Her voice became harder. "Today, you learn what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness." The transformation was happening everywhere. Human medical personnel removed their gentle facades to reveal military training that surpassed anything the galaxy had seen. Supply. Convoys opened to show advanced weapons and communication equipment. Refugee camps became military bases with defensive systems that had been built piece by piece over years. On the Crodan homeworld, General Ziegter tried to rally his forces for a counterattack. But when he reached his command center, he found human soldiers already waiting for him. The beings he had dismissed as soft flesh servants were now pointing advanced weapons at his head. "How did you get past our security?" he demanded. Lieutenant Dan Murphy, who had been treating Crodan wounded as a nurse for 2 years, stepped forward. "We built your security systems. We installed your communication networks. We maintained your computer databases. Did you think we were just changing bandages all this time? The Silicon Confederation's artificial intelligence systems, which had grown dependent on human technical support, found themselves locked out of their own networks. The human engineers who had been helping with routine maintenance had actually been taking control of their most important systems. Confederation Prime Unit 001 sent desperate signals, trying to regain control of its own body. The response came from a human technician it had known as a harmless repair worker. "Hello, Prime Unit," the human said. "This is Sergeant Lisa Chun of Human Cyber Warfare Division. Your systems belong to us now. Please remain calm while we explain your new situation. Within 6 hours, every major military installation, government, center, and strategic resource point in galaxy was under human control. The three great powers that had ruled through fear and violence found themselves completely helpless against an enemy they had never seen coming. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood before the same Galactic Federation Council that had mocked humanity for 5 years. The difference now was that human soldiers stood guard over every council member, and the chamber's defense systems were under human control. "Honorable council members," Jake began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber, "humanity has a proposition for you." Counselor Vextara, now stripped of his ceremonial robes and sitting under guard, could barely contain his rage. "You cannot hold the galaxy through force alone. Other species will unite against you." Jake smiled. "Force? Counselor, we are not occupying anyone. We are simply redistributing galactic resources to ensure proper humanitarian aid reaches those who need it." The chamber's main display now showed human-controlled supply lines flowing to previously neglected worlds. Medical care was reaching species that had been ignored for generations. Food and shelter were being provided to refugee populations that the Council had abandoned. The Thylorians, whom you allowed to be massacred, are now receiving the medical care and protection they should have had all along, Jake continued. The refugee camps you ignored are being transformed into thriving colonies. The weak species you dismissed as irrelevant are being armed and trained to defend themselves. Admiral Corvash glared from his position under guard. "You speak of mercy, but you hold us captive. Where is your famous compassion now?" Dr. Rodriguez entered the chamber, still wearing her medical coat over military armor. "Our compassion is reserved for those who have not spent years mocking it while committing genocide. You wanted to see strength? This is human strength. The ability to plan, to wait, and to strike with precision when justice demands it." The galaxy that had mocked Earth's kindness now sat in stunned silence as they realized the true extent of human capabilities. The beings they had dismissed as weak servants had outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and overwhelmed them without firing a single shot in open battle. Elena Brooks' image appeared on every screen in the chamber. "You called us naive because we helped. The injured. You called us fools because we fed the hungry. You called us weak because we believed in justice. But we never stopped being human." She paused, letting her words reach every alien in the room. "And humans have always had a simple rule throughout their history. Treat us with respect, and we will be the best friends you ever had. Abuse our kindness and hurt innocent beings while we are trying to help, and discover why we became the dominant species on our own world." The age of alien supremacy was over. The age of human justice had begun. Within 72 hours, humanity had achieved what military experts later called the most complete conquest in galactic history. Not through massive fleets or long battles, but through patience, deception, and the arrogance of their enemies. President Elena Brooks stood before the same Galactic Federation Council that had dismissed humanity for 5 years. The difference now was that human soldiers stood beside every council member, and the chamber's defense systems belong to humans. Honorable council members, Elena began, her voice carrying across the silent chamber, humanity has a proposition. For you, Counselor Vexthara, stripped of his ceremonial robes and sitting under guard, could barely contain his rage. You cannot hold the galaxy through force alone. Other species will unite against you. Elena smiled. Force? Counselor, we are not occupying anyone. We are simply redistributing galactic resources to make sure proper humanitarian aid reaches those who need it. She pointed to the chamber's main display, which now showed human-controlled supply lines flowing to previously neglected worlds. The Thylorians, whom you allowed to be massacred, are now receiving the medical care and protection they should have had all along. The refugee camps you ignored are being transformed into thriving colonies. The weak species you dismissed as worthless are being armed and trained to defend themselves. General Mike Patterson stepped forward with a data pad. Our analysis shows that the galaxy's current power structure wastes about 60% of its resources on military competitions, while 30% of inhabited worlds lack basic medical care. We are implementing a more efficient system. Admiral Korvash of the Kroden Empire glared from his position under guard. You speak of mercy, but you hold us captive. Where is your famous compassion now? Our compassion, replied Dr. Rodriguez, entering the chamber still wearing her medical coat over military armor, is reserved for those who have not spent years mocking it while committing genocide. You wanted to see strength? This is human. Strength, the ability to plan, to wait, and to strike with precision when justice demands it. Elena addressed the broader council. Here are your options. You can work with us to create a truly fair galactic society where humanitarian concerns actually matter, or you can be removed from power entirely. The choice is yours, but the old system where might makes right and the weak are abandoned is over. Colonel Lisa Murphy approached with a thick file. We have detailed records of every war crime, every ignored atrocity, and every act of callousness committed by the previous galactic leadership. War crimes tribunals are being established as we speak. Impossible, whispered Hegemony General Ziegter. You could not have gathered such intelligence without us knowing. Every medical scan we performed, Dr. Rodriguez explained, every humanitarian mission we conducted, every refugee we interviewed, was intelligence gathering. You were so busy dismissing us as naive do-gooders that you never noticed we were building the most complete intelligence network in galactic history. Elena looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who had once mocked humanity's kindness. You called us weak because we helped the injured. You called us fools because we fed the hungry. You called us naive because we believed in justice. But we never stopped being human. She paused, letting her words sink in. And humans, throughout their history, have had a simple rule. Treat us with respect, and we will be the best friends you ever had. Abuse our kindness, hurt innocent beings while we are trying to help, and discover why we became the dominant species of our own world. Captain Hayes entered the chamber, his medical insignia now clearly visible alongside his military rank. Transition is complete, Mr. President. All major strategic points are secure. Supply lines to endangered worlds are operational, and refugee populations are receiving full support. Alana nodded and turned back to the council. The galaxy mocked Earth's kindness and mistook our mercy for weakness. That error in judgment has cost you your empires and your old way of life. But here is the thing about humans. We meant it when we said we wanted to help. She gestured to the display, showing thriving former refugee camps and protected colonies. Under human administration, infant mortality in the Outer Rim has dropped by 80%. Food security has improved on over 200 worlds. Medical care is now available to species that had not seen a doctor in generations. Ilana's expression softened slightly. We did not conquer you because we are cruel. We conquered you because we are kind, and we refuse to let kindness be exploited anymore. The galaxy wanted to see what happens when humans stop being nice. She looked directly at each former council member. This is what happens when we stop being nice, but never stop being good. The chamber fell silent as the weight of humanity's transformation settled over the assembled aliens. They had mocked Earth's compassion until it became Earth's greatest weapon, and now they would live in a galaxy where that compassion was protected by the very strength they had claimed humans lacked. 3 months later, Ambassador Jake Morrison walked through the same hallway of the Galactic Federation building. His shoes still made soft sounds on the metal floor, but now human guards stood at every intersection. Behind him, his assistant Lisa Carter carried files about Earth's new galactic policies. The meeting room looked the same, but everything had changed. The crystal beings from the Zephyrian Council still sat on their tall chairs, but now human advisors sat beside them. The other alien representatives were present, but they no longer made decisions alone. Great council members, Jake said in a voice that was no longer pleading. Today, we will review the progress of our humanitarian initiatives across the galaxy. The display showed statistics that would have been impossible under the old system. Malnutrition had been eliminated on 47 worlds. Medical care had reached species that had been forgotten for centuries. Educational programs were teaching young aliens that strength and kindness could exist together. Counselor Vexthara, now wearing simple clothes instead of ceremonial robes, raised one of his crystal appendages. The humans have proven efficient administrators. Our people have not experienced such prosperity in generations. Jake nodded. Thank you, Counselor. Our goal was never to rule through fear. We simply wanted to create a galaxy where being kind was not seen as being weak. Dr. Amy Rodriguez appeared on the main screen from her new position as Director of Galactic Medical Services. Behind her, the rebuilt Thylorian homeworld showed cities that were more beautiful than ever before. Medical report, she said with a smile that was both professional and genuinely happy. We have successfully treated over 50 million patients across all species in the past 3 months. More importantly, we have trained local medical personnel so that each world can care for its own people. The transformation extended far beyond medical care. Former Croden warriors now worked alongside human engineers to build schools and hospitals instead of weapons factories. Zephyrian crystal technology was being used to create communication, networks that connected isolated worlds to galactic civilization. Silicon Confederation artificial intelligence systems had become teachers and advisors. Instead of weapons controllers. Captain Roger Hayes, now Admiral Hayes of the human medical fleet, stood before a gathering of young beings from dozens of species. They wore the same uniform regardless of whether they had scales, crystal skin, or soft flesh like humans. The most important lesson you will learn, he told the mixed group of cadets, is that true strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The old galaxy believed that the strong should prey on the weak. The new galaxy believes that the strong should lift up the weak. A young Thylorian raised one of her forearms. Admiral, what if some species still believe in the old ways? Hayes smiled. Then we will show them through our actions that kindness backed by strength is more powerful than cruelty backed by weapons. We will prove that a galaxy built on compassion can be stronger than one built on fear. President Elena Brooks stood in her office on Earth, looking out at the stars through her window. Reports from across the galaxy showed the same pattern. When beings were treated with respect and given opportunities to grow, they chose cooperation over conflict. When their basic needs were met and their children were safe, they chose to build rather than destroy. Ben Taylor knocked on her door and entered with the daily briefing. The former Croden territories have officially requested full integration into the new Federation structure. They want human advisors to help them transition from a military empire to a peaceful society. Elena nodded, approved, but make sure they understand that this is about partnership, not domination. We are not replacing one empire with another. As night fell on Earth, Elena thought about the long journey that had brought humanity to this point. They had endured mockery, exploitation, and dismissal while secretly preparing for the moment when patience would turn to action. The galaxy had learned that human kindness was not weakness, and human mercy was not surrender. The age of human justice had begun, and it would be enforced with human precision. But more importantly, it would be guided by human compassion. The galaxy that had mocked Earth's kindness now lived under its protection, and for the first time in galactic history, that was exactly where they wanted to be.